This video is about turning this piece of wood into this little shark figure. We're gonna start this project by making this simplified shape first. Here I'm drawing a rough outline to help with the basic shape. I'm starting with the biggest curve, the curve of the tail. Then I'm moving on to slightly separating the head from the pectoral fins. Here I'm creating a slanted surface on the upside, on both sides of the first dorsal fin, meaning the biggest fin on the shark's back. A little sketching in between again and a lot of rough cuts, so cuts where you just push through like this. Here I'm making a few sweeping cuts to create space between the dorsal fin and the tail. As you can see, this step of the process is very much just about making cuts all around the shark, making adjustments along the way. This is a good approach in my opinion, because all of the features relate to other features. If you go too close to the final form on one of them and only then start working on the next, the proportions of the shark might end up weird. Now I'm thinning out the tail a little further and then flattening out the bottom, because the pectoral fins need that lateral space that doesn't exist on the bottom of a round object like this piece of wood of mine. Now we're getting close enough to the rough shape. The flat surface on the bottom also allows me to now make a more accurate drawing of the shark's shape. Then it's time to cut out most of the extra. I'm using these sweeping cuts at first and then switching over to these V-cuts, where I cut from the opposing sides towards the crease between the fin and the body. Now that the entire bottom is flat, I'm gonna define the head shape again. And this time it's gonna be very close to the final slimness. Now it's easier to thin out the rest of the body too, including all of the fins. However, don't cut any of the fins to their final thickness yet, because now they can easily still be used as support for carving other parts. Thinner fins might break if you pull hard against them. Anyways, we need to remove some of the wood from here and from here. These push cuts, where I only use the wrist of my knife hand and the thumb of my opposing hand to move the blade, allow for great control and maneuverability. However, I'm also using other more difficult cuts here, like this weird combination of a paring cut and a push cut, where I'm moving the blade by moving the wrist of my right hand while supporting the movement with my left thumb. If you've never tried something like this, I suggest using proper gloves at first, and keep in mind that the cutting motion only comes from the wrists and the hands. I'm not pulling towards myself with my arms at all. Here you can also see a bunch of other examples of how I'm using my opposing thumb to create these stable and controlled movements. Along the way I keep on looking at these sketches I made for reference, and right now I can see that more curvature is needed. Before slimming the shark down too much, there's still a few little fins missing. Now I'm drawing them with the outline and also marking their spots across the top and the bottom. These tiny fins on the bottom are a slightly trickier step. This is basically a different version of the V-cut, where the angle of the cuts goes slightly outward. Then we can slim the fins down slightly from the sides. As you're getting closer to the final shape of the tail too, draw it on the wood first in order to have a reference. Before some final details, all that remains is iteration on the previous steps. Now we can slim down the fins to their final thickness and smoothen out the shark from everywhere. The head shape is crucial. Right now I have a little too much roundness on the top of the head, which gives off too much of a tuna fish head shape. Sharks have a flatter head. If you notice anything similar to this that seems off, it's a good idea to scroll through some photos of sharks for reference. Now to the final details. The shape of the mouth is relatively simple. It's basically a wide letter U that can initially be made with these small but aggressive sweeping cuts. You can then finish it with very small V cuts. It's good to leave some wood over here, because if the angle between the jaws is too sharp, it can look like your shark is missing its teeth. The gill openings are easy to make just by pressing the blade straight into the wood, like this. Before the final step, the eyes, we'll want to flatten out the sides of the head a bit. Without this, your shark can again start to look like some other kind of fish. Most sharks have their eyes on the sides of the head like this. After carving the eyes, I'm defining them slightly better by using this sharpened stick.